A little thought piece today to start the program, and I can hear people going, oh no, let's tune out of this. I didn't know that thinking may be involved. I already have all my opinions. Well, don't worry, this won't take long. As I commented on Friday, this week Uber announced that later this month it would introduce self-driving cars as part of a service in Philadelphia. We're talking August here. But the news barely rated a mention in the mainstream media, and when it was mentioned, it was more like a novelty item. Well, forgive me, but I don't see the potential job loss of around 75,000 jobs, taxi drivers, truck drivers, delivery jobs of all types over the next decade. I don't see that as a novelty. You know, Apple, Google, Audi, BMW, Tesla, Mercedes-Benz, Ford, GM, all working on self-driving cars. Testing's taking place all over North America. Google, Ford, GM have all made it clear they're getting into ride sharing. But Uber's starting now, on the road with passengers. And there's no sign that anyone in the political establishment, politicians, organized labor, media commentariat, the educational establishment, has any idea as to the implications. I say that because any other time 75,000 jobs were threatened, I think they'd be jumping up and down. They'd be declaring their deep concern to anyone who'd listen. I can only conclude that they don't get it, which makes their ability to provide leadership more than suspect. I mean, no kidding, Sherlock. But they prove it every day. It's impressive, but nothing wakes these people up. How do they do it? How do they stay asleep that long? And you know what? I think this is what we get when merit is no longer the criteria for selection. But maybe they simply don't understand what the Boston Consulting Group or people like Princeton's head of their transportation program, Elaine Kornhauser, mean when they say that self-driving robo-taxis could revolutionize city driving, allowing consumers, think about this, to share a commute not only for less than the cost of a traditional taxi, but for less than the all-in cost of a subway ride. Oh no, this is profound. But my point is, when I first started talking about the implication of self-driving cars, they were still years away. But now we're talking Uber is putting a self-driving car, or more than one, self-driving cars on the road at the end of the month with passengers. Their idea is to get started, to collect the data, and in conjunction with Volvo, who happens to be the cars that they're going to use to begin with. And they're going to make adjustments. They'll use other manufacturers too as we go along. But they're going to make adjustments on the fly. They're going to continue to innovate. This is happening now. But the implications are revolutionary. Think about this. Insurance companies. You're going to have fewer accidents. That means fewer claims. Maybe they need fewer adjusters. Maybe premiums are lower for drivers. Maybe they need less office space. Healthcare. This may be some of the best news healthcare's had in decades, because there'll be fewer accidents. It's going to mean significantly less bodily or body injury patients, less rehab. You're not going to have to see as many doctors at that time. Reduce maybe waiting times on that basis. Open up time in operating rooms. I mean, think about this. In Canada, there's 165,000 injuries a year from car accidents, 10,000 serious, 1,800 to 2,000 deaths, tens of billions in losses. Well, self-driving cars, trucks, buses are going to dramatically reduce those numbers, which means major savings for healthcare. But think about this. Fewer accidents also means auto body shops could see significantly less work, which could impact employment. Fewer accidents will mean lower policing costs. There'll be much more on all of this, but I think you get the point. But self-driving vehicles are just one aspect of the tech revolution. Of course they are. I mean, we've been talking 3D printing, cloud computing, Internet of Things, robotics. They're all reaching into every aspect of society. But here's my point. They're rarely mentioned in our most prominent public debates. And that's simply not good enough. But why aren't they mentioned? Well, maybe it's ignorance. Maybe it's intellectual laziness. I mean, also to talk about the tech revolution clearly doesn't fit some political agendas. I mean, come on. How does that fit into Justin Trudeau's sunny days message? If he starts walking around saying, hey, guess what? Some occupations are about to disappear. They're going to be eliminated, and with them tens of thousands of jobs. Certainly no opposition leader is going to walk around saying, hey, elect me, because there's big job losses coming. But I think there's another reason that we have so little public leadership on the file, and that's my point today. So little public leadership. Organized labor shows no sign they have a clue what's going on. Our politicians, our educational establishment, that's my point. But why? Well, you know what? I suspect that our leaders can't imagine what's going on. They can't imagine this future brought about by technological changes like self-driving cars. That's why governments are always in reaction mode. I mean, come on. Look at how municipal governments have scrambled to react to Uber and Airbnb. I mean, it's pathetic. I mean, governments' collective heads swim with the thought of robo-taxis, the implication of self-driving buses, and product delivery by drone, let alone personal flying vehicles that I think are coming probably in the next decade. Well, they can't imagine it. So they continue with business as usual. I mean, it's just ridiculous to see politicians talk about transit planning without taking into account the impact of self-driving vehicles. I mean, forgive the cliche, but they might as well be talking about horses and buggies. The world's going to look distinctly different before those plans are implemented. Businesses, when businesses don't recognize or better still anticipate the impact of technological change, they go bankrupt. But in government simply becomes irrelevant. We pass them by, and I'll give you a quick example. Think of how much learning occurs online right now and bypasses our public education system. That'll be tough for some people to get, but the evidence is very clear. Think of the CRTC. Are you kidding? How out of touch can you be in a world with social media and streaming content? But it's about control. And old government models loved control the population through regulation. But it's passing them by. As I say, they didn't anticipate Uber. And when Uber showed up, they didn't have a clue about it, and they still don't in most jurisdictions in Canada. But that list is much longer. But it's about governments losing control, and they hate it. But in the meantime, the change takes place whether you send me a hate email, whether you don't want your job to be eliminated, or you don't want the opportunities that are afforded by this. It's still all going to happen.